Welcome to Iris After Hours.
Casual conversations with inspirational speakers off the clock.
G'day, welcome back to Iris After Hours, your favourite podcast. Now today, definitely, Crystalyn.
We hope.
Definitely, we believe, we got faith this is your favourite podcast. But today we have really amazing guests, like we do every week, but these guys are world changers. They are really good friends of ours. They are full-time missionaries with Iris. They go way back with Iris, like at least 12 years. And they are our very good friends, Herbert and Lorelei Barbuttis. The Barbuttis. Did I say it right, Herb?
You said it.
Get it right.
Come on. Welcome to the show, guys.
Say your last name in Portuguese real quick.
Barbutti.
Oh, I love that so much better. I wish I had known that. Can we do the intro again? Barbutti. I love it. No.
No,
we're not going to do the intro again.
Thanks for being
But
here,
Barbutti,
guys.
I love Barbutti.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So, guys, you have relocated from Brazil
Yes.
just recently, like what, 2 months ago, 3 months ago,
Yeah, about 2 months ago, I think.
to the crazy Western world, Los Angeles, California. What's it like? So you've come from Fortaleza, which is pretty much like, would you call that like a developing city?
Yeah, it's a developing city. It's third world, but it's developing for sure.
Yeah. So what's been like the biggest thing about coming here to Los Angeles that you've noticed, or that you've had to cope with differently from Brazil?
Probably just the culture differences, and even just living in the little missions it's not so little, but missions world, and coming to big LA where everybody's beautiful and and first world looking and
has
just
clothes
a
on
very
here.
different culture. Everybody wears clothes. My kids have to wear clothes all the time.
Oh, bummer.
It's a big change. We didn't have to do laundry.
Gosh,
before.
I want to move to Brazil, I think.
He would. Actually, that's like your dream, I feel like.
Exactly. Come
Sarah's
on.
screaming shirt on at Nathan all the time.
Come on. Take me back to Eden, I say.
The trip to the supermarket, that's probably a little shocking.
Oh yeah. I had to shadow my mom for a few weeks and say, "Teach me the ways." It was very different.
Because you were 5 years planting a base.
Yeah, just about 5 years, 5.5 years, and not all that time was spent planting the base, but I think we started the base about 4 years ago, and started was kind of like it wasn't a base yet. We started in our living room with an iPod player, actually no furniture at the time, and it was 6 people. So that was about 4 years ago.
Wow. But were you in Fortaleza before that?
Yeah, we were
so
in
you
Fortaleza
obviously
before.
You landed in Fortaleza 5 years ago and just seeking the Lord. Where do we go? How do we... Tell us that story. Tell us the story about Iris Fortaleza when you first landed there 5 years ago.
Yeah, so we actually went to help out with some friends.
Yep.
I'd already been with Iris for a while, and we had some missions bases out there already in Sao Paulo and Rio, and so we wanted to kind of help Iris kind of connect those places and help them really thrive and be connected to the movement. But we're also helping a friend locally there in Fortaleza with a church plant. We were figuring out what that meant, and he hosted us, brought us into his house. We didn't have any money, no supporters, and we had just been married 10 days when we left. So we
Oh my goodness.
yeah, so we had planned
That's
that.
another hiding Roland, Christy.
So we had
That's
planned
intense.
it obviously before the wedding that we were going to leave, and so we wanted to start our life in missions, and we felt Brazil was the place, and we had some friends there. So Isaiah and Aaron.
You are Brazilian. You're a dual citizen with
Yes,
Brazil and the USA.
I'm actually a tri-citizen.
Come on.
Yeah, so that was a blessing.
Australia.
The Jason
I
Bourne
wish.
Missionaries.
No, Italian. So EU. Yeah, it was my other one.
Barbutti.
Barbutti. Yeah, it's actually Italian. You got it. You got it, which was my
Combo.
first missions field.
Did you anticipate going back to Brazil to do missions?
I actually never
Because
thought I would
I know
go
you've
back.
talked a lot about Africa before, and so being Brazilian, was that a surprise to you?
That was much. Some people had actually asked me about it in Brazil. Actually, back in Curitiba, for that trip, people would say, "Oh, you should come to
Curitiba,
missions."
is that like a Brazilian
That's a Brazilian
expression?
city down in
Oh, it's a
south.
city.
That's where.
I thought you were saying something funny.
Oh,
Say it again.
Funny.
What's the
Curitiba.
Curitiba. It's very cute. Curitiba.
Yeah, it's
It means to make one very happy.
Oh, come on.
As well.
I received that.
He's
But
making stuff up.
I am making stuff up. Sorry.
yeah, but the people would ask me, and I would always say no, actually, because I felt like it was kind of this middle ground between third world and first world.
Yes.
And so
And you were thinking, I want to go to the most intense place that
Yeah.
possibly can.
Yeah, totally. And part of that was, I think, we were wondering if we should go back to Mozambique. I think the Bakers really wanted us back, but we felt like it might just be too much for our first year married to be back there with a lot of the demands and such. So we really prayed, and we were very surprised that it was Brazil. But
And did you both feel that right away?
He felt it more strongly than I did, but I just felt like I was supposed to follow my husband.
Nice.
So we
Come
did.
on.
So she did.
And you were pretty open because you've got a great. I mean, your dad's into missions, isn't he? And you grew up
Yeah.
with a whole perspective of, saving the world.
That whole perspective.
Well, I think when I encountered Holy Spirit, that was definitely. But growing up with a missionary dad definitely gave me an amazing foundation. So I just wanted
Yeah.
to go wherever Jesus was leading
Yes.
us, and we felt that together. So
Yeah.
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 So it wasn't like he had to convince you too hard to go to Brazil when it was
No.
when he felt that in the Lord.
I think I really felt God say, "Follow your husband," and so it was great. I mean, it was a challenge the first year. Lots of new things. We were just married.
Showing up on the mission field 10 days married is
and then I was
sounds
pregnant
intense
6
to me.
weeks later.
Honeymoon baby!
Yeah.
Come on!
So it was
Yeah.
a big year. It was a big
We
year
did.
the first year.
Yes.
Yeah, new language for her. I was pretty rough. My Portuguese is rough, but I knew it. I couldn't
Yeah.
understand it. But she didn't know it, so she had to learn it, which she did quickly. But a lot of new things. Being married. I mean, we were sleeping in a small room, smaller than this room, and it was two twin size
Like the really
air mattresses
thin
next to
air
each other.
mattresses.
Air mattresses.
Romantic.
And
On the floor.
Oh, yeah.
They were
Yeah,
Brazil
very
air mattresses. So are we talking
that was
about
awesome.
the big double
No,
ones
no,
from
just
America
like
that
that big.
self-inflating? Yeah.
No, so
I
every
was
night you'd
thinking-
have to inflate it.
Yeah.
You had
I
a
was
little
thinking it's
bump.
not like this.
Every night you'd go, what the?
Yeah.
All right.
Because I slept on one the other night and it was
And
like
then
a
it
double
deflates
bed.
in the middle of the night.
Uh-huh.
And then, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
gosh, and you start sinking together.
Yeah,
and
you
roll
want to cuddle,
together.
it's like, you go right
You
into
just
the
fall
floor.
into the
It's like
So-
God's helping you to cuddle us
Yeah.
so close by letting
On
the bed deflate.
on the ceramic
Every
floor.
night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it
Oh,
was
that's
great.
why you got pregnant. Okay.
Yeah, no TV,
All right.
for sure. So, so yeah, it was a great first year. It was a lot of learning for both of us, and the couple that were with Aaron and Isaiah were awesome, and they hosted us there for a while, and we didn't know we
And
were
this
going
was
to be planting.
Fortaleza?
Fortaleza.
Now,
Fortaleza.
can I just ask what? Did you already say why Fortaleza? Because it was a poor city.
It was a poor city.
I want the world to know about Fortaleza.
Yeah, Fortaleza.
Let's put it on the map because people know about Rio and
Yeah.
Brasilia.
We actually
Let's put Fortaleza on the map, guys.
Come on,
So
through this
Fortaleza.
podcast.
boom.
We originally actually kind of thought that it was a lot closer to the Amazon and riverboat ministry and stuff. Turns out it was really actually not. But
Because this
what-
couple,
yeah.
that's what they used to do.
But you needed a bit of encouragement.
and we kind of and they had told us that they were doing riverboat ministry and all that kind of stuff, and so we kind of thought, oh, we're gonna get to like do Amazon missions. How
Come on.
cool! We
Sleep
got
in the
there and
hammocks.
it wasn't exactly like that. It was still very third world and all that, but it's actually also listed as the world's third most popular destination in the world for sex tourism, and that's been a
way.
huge thing that God has wrecked my heart for from the beginning. So we didn't even know that until a few weeks after we moved there, and I was researching, and I was like, wow. So that was a big thing for us, and yeah, I mean, we didn't know all the amazing missionaries that were going to be found there either.
Yeah, so it grew fairly quickly. You had people come and join you, and it turned. How long till it turned into a base?
Probably about a year.
Right.
And I think for us, like a base was when we really had like a really large house or property that we could
Yeah.
have several full-time missionaries at.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took about a year and a half from like really starting a project in the slums, which was already going by our co-leader, Andrew Fanstone, who's still there. And so about a year after that, and us doing a lot of Bible studies and prayer meetings and discipling some of the youth there. And now
In the slum?
some of them were from the slums, some were not, some were just from the city. They're really hungry for God, and eventually some people came from overseas to come help. Some old friends that felt called to serve in Brazil for a while ended up staying, and so became a base
Awesome.
about a year later, and now we've transitioned out of that base. A year after that, we had to get another building, and then now we're in a large building, and we have a few different facilities around the city there.
Oh, awesome.
So
Now, were you living in the slum at one stage, or you had your prayer house in the slum? I can remember.
yes,
Our prayer house is
The
in
prayer
slum,
house.
Yeah.
And that was like, tell us the story of that, because that had a pretty interesting use before it became a prayer house. didn't it?
oh yeah. So that was actually built in the slum. Everything's very small and it's very narrow. And so we found a property actually that was fairly large comparatively, and it was 2 stories high. And we were just praying for that spot, and we found out it was actually built by the drug lord there, who ran that slum before he was killed. He'd been killed by I don't remember if it was another drug lord or police, maybe a year earlier.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and so actually when we actually got it, it was a huge miracle we got it, and it oversees the slum. And actually we had police officers come in there with, we didn't know there were police officers at the time, with machine guns and ski masks, breaking down the door because
What? So you were in there,
Wow.
in there
Like
praying,
a day or so after.
because
that
this
we
used to
had
be a
moved
drug
in.
lord's sort of house.
Yep.
You were in there praying, and all of a sudden, what happens? The
It was
door
me.
just gets kicked in.
Well, actually, there was a lot of shooting, and so
You could hear the shooting.
Yeah, yeah. And so
Hey,
they
hang on, I was going to say you guys are real missionaries. Okay.
Oh,
That's
come
true.
on.
If I had the certificate, I'd sign it right now to give it to you guys.
Once
Sorry.
you've heard the gunfire.
Gunfire.
It's
Yeah.
a real
Come
deal.
on. Come on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was there with the guy that grew up there who's one of my best friends now. His name is Ned, and we were in there praying, and then we heard all the gunfire and stuff up on the roof. So and it happens semi-regularly there, although now it's actually become rare. Thank God, like it's gotten a lot better. But back in those days, it would happen quite a bit. And so then it stopped for a while, and then we heard this hammering, and then we looked down because we were up on the top floor. And we looked down the stairs, and there's the guys with the ski masks and the machine guns, and they're pulling the
And
door.
did you think they were like bad dudes, or
Well-
did you know they were police?
At this point,
Kind of our bad.
the police, they're pretty corrupt, you know?
They're some of the most
Yeah.
violent.
And so they only really shoot if certain people if something happens.
Yes.
Otherwise, they collect money and stuff like that. And if it doesn't get collected, so it's that whole thing. So, but I mean, we were in there, so we peeked down there, and Ned was like, "Hey, you guys want to come in?" And they were like ripping up the door. But fortunately, all these
It
drug.
was a metal door.
It's a metal
They were like
grate.
ripping apart.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Wow.
like
So
one of
they were
those.
they were just destroying your door.
Yeah, they kind of destroyed
Your
it a little
beautiful
bit.
security door.
Yeah,
Was
I
really
know.
hard to break into.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
Which you probably needed
yeah we
in that area.
Yeah, we got it back,
Oh.
but at least they didn't come in. Sometimes they'll really come in real violently. But the guys actually had told them, all the drug users that they'd gotten up, they had told them they were missionaries in there, and so they were really trying to protect us. So at that point, when they came in, they were pretty rough, but they didn't like hurt us or anything. And
Right.
so we showed them around, told them what we were doing. So it ended up being a great thing. Good time.
Invite them.
And they were
Yeah.
on board.
We invited them to pray with us.
Come, let's
They didn't want
pray.
to.
They
They didn't want to
pray.
do that. Yeah,
What's
but
wrong with those police?
no, they were kind of.
Hey, but you asked.
But
That's good.
Yeah.
Can you guys walk us through how you first got involved with Iris?
Oh, good question, Christy.
that's a good question.
Well, Herb has the longer history. I married into the family. So
Come on, but
very
you got
blessed.
your missions history. Come on.
Yeah.
This is like a.
First contact was really, I was in a trip in Curitiba, and I ran with Randy Clark, and I started hearing.
Say it again.
In Curitiba.
Is that the same one? Or is that a different?
Yeah,
place?
the same
That's
place.
the
Same
Oh, no
city.
Yeah, that's the trip I was talking about.
A cutie,
and so,
a cutie.
He's going to make you repeat every
Curitiba?
Brazilian word.
It's like
from
Curitiba,
now on.
yeah.
Curitiba, but
Curitiba.
you say Curitiba.
It's like cutie chiba. It's very
so
cute.
yeah, it's very cute. And so we were doing it. Randy was doing his first.
Randy Clark.
Randy Clark.
The
was doing
Randy
his-
Clark.
The Randy Clark.
Come
He
on.
was doing his first power invasion there, and so I started hearing he would talk about this missionary in Mozambique. So that's the first I kind of heard about.
you
And
talk
then the
about Heidi.
next year, I went again and I met Heidi's daughter, Crystalyn.
No way.
Yeah,
In
we're on the
in
same
Cutie Chiba?
Curitiba.
in Curitiba.
No way. You're
Yeah.
in Cutie Chiba too. Why haven't I been to Cutie Chiba? I'm the only one that hasn't been to
I
Cutie
haven't
Chiba.
either.
Okay,
Yeah,
come on.
well, it
Come
hasn't
on.
been.
We gotta go.
It's been close, but
Go.
so then I heard a little bit more. There was a little more context. But then I did a school a few months after that in Brazil, in Curitiba. Okay.
Don't say it again.
Don't say it again.
Who ran the school?
It's great. It's
in
Curitiba.
that town. In that really cute.
It was this
town
little
in Brazil.
tiny school that
I'm not
actually I
saying
don't
the
think
name.
exists anymore. It was a ministry school, like 8-week intensive.
Who
Yeah,
ran it?
Michael
Lorelei?
Ellis. No, it was called Elijah House.
I've heard of
Nehemiah
that.
School. It's called Nehemiah School.
Come on,
Okay,
that's some
and
pretty
so-
good names going on there.
Yeah, and so it was great. It was a shock because I thought the girl was really running it. She invited me and said, "No, we need you." And at that time, I was really opposed to ministry training, But God spoke to me. I went and find out that it was actually inner healing school, which I at the time did not believe in at all. And so, but I mean, one of the things I most use now, very thankful for. But there, Heidi actually came. This little place that was secluded, only about 50 students came. And so my leaders told her that I wanted to go to the Congo. At that time, I was planning on going to the Congo.
Wow, so that was in your heart to go to the Congo.
That was in my heart, yeah. I was really, I didn't have that calling like some missionaries, I think.
Can I just ask how you got the call to the Congo?
That is a good
It's a
question.
really good story.
Okay,
We'll come back to this point. I'm just going to digress for 1 second.
yeah. I think I didn't have that normal like missionary like compassion thing that like, I felt one country or one people group.
Okay, what's your mercy in the redemptive gifts?
What's the what?
Your mercy gifting.
Mercy
Is it high or low?
rating.
I like to think it's higher than it was before, but I don't know how high it
It's
is.
a work in progress.
It's progress.
Yeah, okay, don't worry. What you said just made me think about it. Does he have any mercy or
but
not?
I don't know. Is there a test for that?
Yes, there.
Okay,
yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't taken it.
So,
Yeah,
but-
sorry. Christy's wondering
There's
what's
like
going
a
on.
million
Christy,
rabbit trails and I can't.
Okay.
come on. We're going to follow the white rabbit.
Okay.
Okay.
No, sorry, go back.
So,
Congo.
so anyway, I would just read my Bible a lot. I didn't have like a church or anything that believed in Holy Spirit where I grew up. So I was praying a lot about wanting to give my whole life. I decided that at 16.
This is your
to
16 years
Jesus.
old? Yeah.
That's when I decided. And then really wanted to do missions because I believed, I saw Acts. I really thought, I want to go somewhere that they haven't heard about Jesus.
Yep.
And so I prayed a lot, waited for an angel, fasted, and that didn't happen. I was actually really concerned that I missed my angelic experience back when I was 18. And I was fasting.
As you would when you were 18.
Yeah, and I fell asleep during like, one of those glory moments, went into the night, like 3 a.m., and I drifted off to sleep, and I kind of thought, oh no, I missed it. That was when the angel was going to come. But, so I really thought, God, what am I going to do? So I took out my globe, put it on the floor, started praying over it.
At
in
3 a.m.?
tongues. No, this was a few days later. I thought
Okay.
I really kicked in, like, maybe I missed this experience. So
Yeah.
I spun the globe around, I prayed and I said, God, use this finger. Wherever it lands, I'm going to go. And so I put down my finger and I opened my eyes. It was in the middle of the Pacific, and so I was like, oh, geez. I was very serious,
I
So
didn't
I said,
think that's where
Jesus.
that was going to go.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So
might
I
be
did
an
that.
island
I
there.
did it again. I rebuked all my sin. I prayed harder, and then I did it again. And it was in the Atlantic Ocean. So I was really like bummed that I couldn't quite get it. And I was like, I don't go anywhere. So I prayed the next few days, and I thought I'll do the next spiritual thing that I could think of. And I went to Google, which was new at the time. Like, it was a new thing. And so I went on there and I just searched, like, darkest places, or no missionaries, countries, and there's no, like, darkest place, but Congo kept coming up. It was kind of considered the heart of darkness. So it was just at a time when a lot of the missionaries were all leaving. There were very
Right.
few anyway. Then they were all leaving. And so it had become very, very bad there. A lot of child soldiers and some difficult things. So I called up a friend and said, hey, I'd heard he had a calling in Africa. I said, hey, why not the Congo? And this guy was probably 20 at the time. I was 18. I was 17. He was maybe 20, and he said, yeah, let's do it. Why not? And that's kind of how I went to that school where I met Heidi. And so when Heidi heard that, she came up to me. She was very excited. I had never met anyone like her, and she laughed a lot, and she was, and so I was like not sure how to take it 100% at the time, and she was like, you should come to Mozambique.
Yeah, and
you
Heidi
should
is a
do
force
this.
to be reckoned with as a personality, isn't
Yes.
she? I mean, she's so full of God and she's so full of truth and positivity, and
Yes.
she'll jump on your dreams and go, say, yes, do it.
Totally. So she's like, come, you need to come to Mozambique. You speak Portuguese. It's going to be great. I was like, well, I'm actually called the Congo. Like, so I was really dead set on that.
And I found it on Google. And I bet she said, yes, just come here. Then we'll send you to the Congo.
Yeah, she was like, you'll go to the Congo later. You come first. And then, I was like, so I kind of said no. But I had a really impactful thing where she prayed for me. She said, I hear God saying you're called. And that was the first time I'd heard that. I'd really struggled with the whole calling thing. Because I hadn't had the angelic experience. I had actually been told...
And the thing you didn't land the first time in the right place in the
No, the second time.
You're a bit dejected.
And so, I remember, it was tough, that calling thing. And I'd go to pastors in Brazil, and I'd preach at church, and they'd say, are you really called the Congo? And I'd go, I think so. And then they'd ask how, and I'd say, I found that on Google. And they'd go, oh, you're going to die. This kid is going to die.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
No,
that's not funny. Why am I laughing? It's not funny. Lorelei, don't laugh.
Yeah. No, so I got that several times. The Brazilian pastor would be like, oh, you're going to die. Like, a Congo's really dangerous.
So
you don't have a calling.
He was going to die when he went to the Congo.
Yeah, I mean, and there's natural... I think
that's a pretty cool thing, actually, for giving up your life and going, okay, I'm going to go despite...
Yeah, and so I think...
be martyred.
I actually think it's very important for missionaries. And so... but that thing of feeling called really helped, and so Heidi was the first person to say, like, you're called. And so I said goodbye to her. She was there for maybe 3 days or so, and not thinking that I was going to go. And then God spoke to me very clearly that I should serve in ministry first.
Yep.
For 6 months to 2 years. So
it's very smart.
So I actually reached out to Iris through kind of the normal channels just to test it. And a miracle happened. They were praying that day for somebody to go to the Congo.
Wow.
Yeah, and so my email eventually got put up to Heidi's PA at the time, Shara.
Yeah.
And they had just come through a prayer meeting in Shara.
We've all just been to Shara's wedding.
That's right.
Days ago in Reading.
That's right.
Wedding in Reading of the century.
Yes, it was. It was awesome.
Epic event.
It was really cool. And so it was the Lord, and then I was there in Mozambique about a week later.
At another ministry school.
Well, I wasn't supposed to go to the ministry school at the time. I accepted as a missionary.
This was the #1 school, and you were there, Crystalyn?
Were you there?
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, Crystalyn
This is the first mission school that Iris ever ran.
This was the
2005.
first school where the poor
2005.
students had to dig their own latrines.
It was
and nothing was ready. And
Boom.
the guys didn't really have housing for ages. And
Yeah, we had to walk 40 minutes.
You got your stuff
on the
stolen.
road. Oh, we got mugged.
assaulted with machetes a few times there too.
Yeah.
Wow, this is real mission.
Cassandra was in that first school.
Yeah, Cassandra.
And Chad, who worked for us,
Chad.
my brother-in-law.
It was a great group.
Whoa.
The inaugural, the ones who
Yeah.
did rough it.
Only given one.
Yeah.
They made it
first
through.
one.
Herbert looked
Yeah.
exactly the same. He looked about 30 when he was 18 still.
That's right.
And
It's
facial
true.
hair.
It's true.
You haven't changed,
I
Em.
haven't changed. I had a little shaggier hair.
I think everyone thought he was 30.
Some white hairs now.
Oh, yeah. This is when we ran our school. These white hairs popped up. Yeah. But
And you ended up going to the Congo right after that, right? For the first time?
yeah, actually.
So you did the whole
we
school?
I got to be part of most of the school as a student.
Yeah.
I came in as a missionary and then helped kind of admin. Right at that time, there was only actually 2 people that really ran the school. It was Leslie. Like on the administrative side, it was Leslie Ann and Susie Scott. And so they had to leave because of visa reasons. Susie did. And so I helped admin right at the end. But I got to participate in about, a solid month and a half of the school, and I got my diploma. I graduated.
Come on.
Nice.
HG1, so it was great.
I did HD5.
Oh, good
Yeah,
job.
I remember.
Oh,
Come on.
Awesome. Here,
And
Nate.
was-
Woo!
And you went to Congo with Will Hart. Right
With
after
Will,
that.
with
No
Cassandra,
way.
yeah.
Our new
and
COO
Lucy.
of Iris
It was
Global.
it was an awesome trip and really cool. And so we went. There was some pastors I heard from Roland, I believe, or Heidi. But they said that some of our pastors had been really persecuted there, and one ended up dying, I believe, and tortured and stuff by the rebels and stuff. So at that point, when I heard that, I reached out. I asked Heidi if it would be possible to go, and she was all like, she kind of was like, oh, I was 18 at the time, and so she was kind of like, oh, okay, do you sure? And I said, yeah, and she was totally behind it. She said, hey, we need to send money there. Here's $20,000. Just strap it onto you and take it in. And
Oh my gosh! So you had to go in with $20,000
Yeah.
cash strapped to your body.
yeah, I mean, there are 4 of us. So then I told Cassandra. Cassandra had a vision for Congo stronger than probably
yes,
anybody.
we did a podcast. She told us the whole story.
Probably
Oh, she did?
stronger than anyone who's ever had one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so she
funny.
knew, and so
We just have to remember to do this podcast after Cassandra, so people know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
So she really had that, and then Will and Moose, they weren't a lot of missionaries on base at the time, and so Will was a good friend, and probably I think he was one of the only guys on base along with me. So told him he said, "Oh, Herb would love to come," and so it was great. So us four and Moosey, and at that time they didn't have any kids, and so we went.
You flew up with Roland, or did you?
No, we flew into Rwanda and then drove in.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was that experience like after you knew you'd been wanting to go to the Congo for so long, and then you finally get there? What is that like for you? Is it what you expect? Is it?
It's I think that's a good question. That's great. I actually think that it was so much harder than I expected. You have those dreams and the visions of like people getting saved, and all that actually ended up happening in those 6 weeks we were there.
Wow.
And just amazing things, really, supernatural things happened. But it was, as always, it's different than in reality than what you picture. Mm-hmm. And so it was part of the journey of...
Probably for most people going in the mission field, that's true.
Yeah.
Once you get there.
And I think that's one of the hardest things is some people think it's going to be like America or just like your vision, except it's black people instead of white people, and it's actually quite different. Like there are a lot of dangers consistently. A lot of the luxuries,
Yep.
I didn't realize I was so spoiled until I got to Mozambique. No running water, nothing. I used to cry in my room and say, God, why was I born rich? I'm ruined now.
Wow.
I used to say that. And so, you get what the New Testament talks about, the rich, and the poor. They have this amazing position, the poor. But, I grew up in America, so it was tough. And I didn't think I was that shallow, but it really does play on the heartstrings. So when getting into Congo was a whole nother level, and then realizing there wasn't even a whole lot of friends around. The loneliness is really tough, I think, on the mission field. But realizing, like, really steadfast, this was my whole life. So fortunately for me, I knew kind of my weaknesses. So when I went to Mozambique, I went on a one-way ticket. I didn't have any money, no supporters. So everything was in faith. But I didn't also have the option to go back. You can always make it happen, but I made it as difficult for myself as possible, knowing it was going to be that I'd want to turn back, as a lot of people do. And so being able to suffer and die to yourself, really die, and then come out on the other side. And I think after 6 weeks, it was hard, but I came out of it going, maybe there's a possibility of even staying, because so much was happening there.
Yeah.
So do you recommend to other people that they go without a means to get back?
Yeah,
That's how you know you'll stay.
I would I would
Herbert,
definitely recommend, like, if
don't give yourself an option.
Yeah,
Heidi and Roland did that too.
Yeah,
That's true.
I think you're talking about in my opinion, mission is about the hardest thing. Pursuing God with your whole heart is the most difficult thing you can do with your life, considering the world is made the way that the prince of this world works is everything take you away from that.
Exactly.
And so, you imagine the Olympic runners and these guys that are practicing, and Paul talks about this for a crown that will fade.
Yes.
We're running for an eternal crown.
Come on,
you
Jesus.
got to really discipline yourself. You got to know what you're getting into. It's not like
And I
you can
suppose
wake up one day and just, you got to be willing to go through the fire. And so it doesn't mean it's easy. But I think you got to do what you got to do once you know.
And I suppose going to the mission field is a test on that level of commitment to the gospel.
Absolutely.
That really...
Yeah. It tests you in so many, it's like that thing, one thing is to dream about it. The other thing is to do it. A lot of people say, I was in a Bible study in the beginning of Loreleis, we're all sitting around and talking about, no, we need to pursue God harder. We need to go after him more. Let's do this. And one of the guys said, hey, do you believe we can walk on water? And we'd been seeing some healing stuff. I said, of course, of course. Biblically, like, we know that. We studied it, and yes, okay, so there was this dirty pool out back, and it was just
Not
it was
dirty.
broken.
It was like dead rats, tarantulas.
Yeah, because it was
dead
broken,
frogs.
and so the filter for months in Brazil, so it was pretty bad, and we didn't have kids at the time either. So we were, or did we?
We had one.
We did have one. Sorry. So
we got to edit that out. Get the kids to do it first.
Dang it.
No. The kids were a baby. Raina was a baby, and so, but it was just back there, this little pool, and so we go, and he goes, okay, let's go out back now and let's test it then. And one thing is everyone's like, yeah, I believe in walking on water. The other thing is, like, you get up to the pool and you're like, can I actually do this?
It doesn't end.
Well, then there was a whole conversation, right? I was like, I'm just going to take my cell phone out and someone's like, well, is that really faith? I was like, oh no, God. So, everybody ended up wet with like just,
gross stuff
gross
all over them.
stuff all
But
over.
everyone tried it.
But everybody tried it. I was proud. Nobody actually walked on water yet, but it really is a different thing talking about it and doing it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
there is something that comes with the experience and you saying to God and saying, I'm going to do it even if I feel, even if it's not like I thought.
Have you ever heard of that story in the old days where some missionaries leaving England or wherever to go to be missionaries in Africa would actually take their coffins with them when they went? Is that true? Have you
That's
heard
true.
that?
That's true.
Like, that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, that's someone who's... That's
They did it.
that's walking on water right there,
Well,
don't you
back
think?
then, travel was so much harder.
Yeah,
And it
that's
took
true.
so
Yes.
long
just
to get across
make
the world.
boat trip
Yeah.
alive was a whole different reality. But
Yeah.
then-
I mean,
So
it's
they left
treacherous.
knowing they probably would never see their family again.
Gosh, that is so hardcore.
That's,
totally different reality.
Yeah, I mean,
And now we
racism has
complain about
changed.
2 days on
Yeah,
a flight.
Exactly. Oh, we have to have a stopover.
No
Oh my
internet for a
God.
week.
First world problems. I know.
I know. Yeah, it's something we've studied a lot. I think it's a thing that we got to get back to that intensity. I don't think the task has changed, but I mean, because of technology and everything, I think there is this thing of low committal. And I feel that myself. The whole transient thing, hipster thing. We kind of want to do our time.
Yeah, I heard that word the other day, hipster. What does that mean again?
That's like. You got the hipster look a lot. No, I don't know.
I'm a bit.
So I'm new to that, so I don't
Chrissy,
know.
am I hipster?
I don't think
Hipster.
I'm bordering on
That's
hipster.
such a common word that I can't explain now.
Come on.
Like a
No,
hipster coffee
100%.
shop, super trendy.
Yes.
All right.
Super cool.
Trendy.
Beard,
Cool.
like man bun.
Oh, man
Yeah,
bun,
you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'm
man
kind of
bun.
messy, but in a cool way.
Yes.
Williamsburg in New York.
Like, not a
Skinnies.
dirty hippie that smells,
No.
but like a
No.
clean hippie
pretty much.
that
Like
smells
cool.
great.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
And
good.
maybe-
With
Cool
nice
little
shoes.
tangent.
Maybe holds down an executive job during the week, but it's like weekend hippie that smells good.
Okay.
With nice shoes.
Yeah.
We might be missing a little bit,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Okay.
it's close. It's close,
Anyway,
I think.
Hips,
We're the wrong people that hipsters. We've been out of the country, but yeah. Anyway, I think it's something that God's pulling us back to. I think the task is the same,
Yeah.
and the commitment should be the same. So
So for you getting married, 10 days later, you guys go to Brazil. I know it's not the Congo, but it's also developing. It's hard. What were some of the challenging things about that for you as a family? I know there's a lot of parents that ask, what is it like to have kids on the mission field? Everyone asks me that.
Right.
Everyone wants to know. But you guys were also newly married, so
Right.
can you talk about that at all? Totally new place.
Yeah, I mean, we actually we did talk about it as we were walking into marriage, and we didn't know when we were going to have kids. We left it with the Lord, but we really felt like we just wanted to start out already just willing to have kids on the mission field and take them with us on the journey, as opposed to like, okay, let's have our kids, and then when they're this certain age, then we'll move on to the mission field, because then it would just be one transition to kids and then another transition with kids onto the mission field.
Yeah.
And so I actually have no idea what it's like to I'm learning now what it's like to have kids in America.
Right.
But it was actually, I
that's
never
all you
would.
knew.
Yeah, I never would trade it. I mean, it was the hardest thing probably was a very difficult birth and not knowing the language, and everything that happened with that was a very difficult thing for me, a very difficult time that God totally used to just break me down and rebuild me and grow me in ways that I never would have. So
That
I
was
wouldn't even
potentially
change that.
life-threatening for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, so many things happened, and honestly, I don't even know everything that happened because it was all in another language.
Oh, gosh.
she passed out.
Ignorance
All
is
I know-
bliss.
She
All I
passed out.
know
She needed
is that there
transfusion
was
right
weeks
away.
and weeks that I was in so much pain after the birth that I couldn't even really walk, and so I actually don't know everything that happened. But
Wow.
But
So-
obviously the not knowing the language and having all of that happen.
So were you
was-
looking after Rainen a lot?
That
When you
was
first
with
born?
Rainen.
That was with
the
Rainen.
first
It was the
baby.
first one.
Yeah, but if she couldn't walk, were you looking after him?
He
a lot,
just
or-
laid next
He
to
laid
me.
next
He
to
was
him.
a very chill baby.
He was just.
I was.
young.
Thank God.
So he was amazing. Both of them have been, and this will be too. But
Wow.
yeah, and so that was definitely the hardest thing. But the hardships, I mean, really, I think that's what God has used most to change me and make me who I am today in many ways. Like,
if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger.
Yeah, and so I wouldn't change any of it. And actually, afterwards, I felt God really even saying, like, I gave you this so that you could share with me in my suffering, and
wow.
And know what, you know, others who have been abused and traumatized have gone through and shared with him and his suffering. So it was actually I wouldn't trade the hardships now. Do I want to live through them again?
Yeah.
Not really, but I'm thankful for those things.
Wow, because that's our, in Iris, that's one of our core values, is suffering when it's required for righteousness or
that's right.
But letting that do its good work in you and to you and through you, and bringing you into closer communion with the Lord, that we become one with Him in His sufferings.
Yeah.
You know that scripture?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
It's so true.
That's a big one. I think a lot of times today people don't really want to suffer, and that goes back to why people leave the mission field or not go to places, but because they feel like suffering.
Well, let me say, I mean, no one wants to suffer, but to be willing to suffer is what you mean. Is that what
willing
you mean?
to suffer. I'm sorry. Yeah. So the willingness to suffer and
for the right reasons.
Yeah. And for the gospel, I think is actually, it's an honor usually. If you're doing the work of the Lord, and that's why martyrdom was always considered an honor to people, for people given. To die like Christ. And you'll often do a martyrdom call, like when you teach at mission schools? Sometimes.
If you feel led?
Yeah, if I feel led, yeah. I think everyone should be willing to be a martyr. I think Jesus makes that very clear.
It's
almost
pretty clear
no theologian would argue with that.
Yeah.
Carrying your cross is the cross was only used for one thing at the time. It wasn't like something you put on your earrings or anything. It was really an instrument of death, and that's all it was used for.
Yeah.
And so when Jesus says that in his context, very much, and he says it very clearly, if you're not willing to give your life, if you're not going to lose your life,
for me, you'll lose it. Yeah.
I feel like people in the Western world just don't have a grid for suffering in the same way. Like, my dad was on here talking about that. You don't often hear about that in church or in the charismatic world at all. But I feel like when you're on the mission field, it's just, you see it in such a distinct way that you're forced to say, this has to be part of our theology in a way. There has to be a way to talk about this that's not just like glory to glory and everything's always great and I never have to suffer, because it's just, you see it. So
and I think even walking through some of those things makes, like, a lot of the epistles and the letters, like, that Paul wrote come alive, when he's saying, when he's writing and encouraging the church and stuff, it all, like, starts to come alive in a totally different way when you're walking through suffering and hardships that I know I never, like, clicked with it. I just kind of, like, read it all, when I lived in America, and I didn't really...
it's different.
And I think we make an assumption that God wants to bless me. Yes, that's true. And prosper me. Yes, that's true. But what's the journey to getting to that place where I'm ready to hold that blessing and prosperity in a place well, and to share it and to be a blessing? Sometimes there's paths of, like you said, hardship and suffering to develop me as a person and in my character, so I'm ready to really receive even bigger and more blessings. So I think we often make an assumption that there's no suffering on the path to get to that blessing and prosperity, but
it's still so hard for me, though, because I feel like, would I say that God wills suffering on someone? Like, I don't know that I would say that. And yet...
Exactly.
And I don't want to say that.
Right.
And yet... Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult.
I think it's really hard, but I think, it's... it's realizing that there's this thing that Jesus keeps saying to his disciples. It's like, don't even the pagans do that. He always criticizes that, do you lord it over them, or do you want honor in this life? But it's consistently, the supernatural lifestyle was never so much just about healings and miracles. That was a sign to it, but it was a show of supernatural life working in the believer that will happen in resurrection. And so Paul says this amazing thing. He says in 1 Corinthians 15:19, he says, if I have hope in Christ for this life only, I'm to be pitied above all men.
Yes.
And that's a very strong thing. I think a lot of people, they want hope for this life, but they're not looking to the future. And Paul actually says you're to be pitied above all men. And a lot of people want to be kings and queens, but, and Jesus says we're princes. I believe I'm a prince.
Yeah.
And she's a princess, and you guys we're royalty. I totally believe that we are. But to which kingdom? Right now, this kingdom isn't the fullness.
No.
It says, the prince of this world is coming. That's what Jesus says.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. And he's got all authority and dominion, but he says the prince is coming.
Yes.
And so that's, I think, as we align ourselves to heaven, knowing that Jesus, he's the one that's he's gonna return, and he's gonna establish New Jerusalem. And in that day, every man will be honored for what he's done, every woman. And there will be nothing, we won't regret any of these decisions, any of the suffering.
There'll be no suffering for righteousness when Jesus comes back.
That's right.
Now's your only chance, guys.
That's right.
So get down and get to it. Come on.
Philip said that before.
Oh, yeah?
How it's an honor to suffer here when we do, because we won't get that chance to still praise him in that suffering when we're in heaven ever
totally.
again.
Exactly. And that whole eternal perspective, that's so true, that we're not living just for this life. That's you have your minds in heaven, that we have a heavenly perspective on things. It's not just heaven here now, is it? It's that everything's in. We're going to be with Christ forever in glory. So don't count it. What does Paul say? Or is it don't count these persecutions or these sufferings now as anything, because we've got future glory coming. So
that's right.
It's almost like he's saying, be willing to go through these trials and these things now, because we got our tickets home. Pray. We got the best one-way ticket booked.
Come on.
And we don't want a return ticket once we get to heaven.
That's right.
Yeah. Right on.
Come on.
Yeah.
To shift gears for a second, you guys recently relocated to LA.
Dislocated.
Sometimes feels like that.
Right? Things feel weird. From Brazil to LA. What is your current role in Iris and your current vision in that?
Yeah,
Come on, I'm excited to hear this.
Well, Iris did
Sock it to us.
that whole structure thing. I think you guys have probably covered it in another podcast, but there's wheels within wheels now, and then there's the...
Is this really happening at Iris?
It's happening.
Wheels within wheels.
So it's happening. And,
Someone explain it to me.
And so there's different departments. We're leading the missions department.
Come on.
And so, that works a lot with the community department, with Emmeline Hart, but... It's a lot of the vision casting. I think Heidi really wanted us on and to kind of help vision cast and bring in some things into Iris that hopefully we carry. A lot of the unreached, that focus to get into some of these places.
Unreached people groups.
And places where there are no missionaries. There's a lot of places like that still around, actually. And so making sure that we're training people, that we're sending them out. So a lot of the stuff with the schools.
And you're planning on doing like a second school, so after people graduate from the Harvest School or other mission schools, they can come to really be trained to go onto the field.
Yes, I think that's really on our hearts.
Go to unreached people groups.
We want to really
a little bit more hardcore.
I think focus. Yeah, hardcore would be a word. Yeah, I think we're looking for that kind of, again, like people that know that they're going to the field, going to a different culture. We get all kinds of people at the Harvest School. Is life transforming time. It's amazing.
Yes.
It's 3 months, and we've got different schools all over the world now. Some are more specific than others, but we feel like we really want to spend some time with people that are going onto the field. They already are committed to going to India or to Tibet or wherever it is.
Yeah.
And then we can actually spend 6 months with them, or 9 months, or however long that takes to really.
Yes.
We haven't decided it's fresh, so like the secondary school is really something we want to be doing. It's a secondary training to one of the Harvest Schools. So somebody would go there first, and as they really have that conviction that they're willing and that they want to give their lives for the gospel, we train them. And more specifically, something smaller size, where we'll really be working with them, language learning a little bit. I mean, as much as you can, but really just a lot of just foundation and teaching and community.
Now, look, I don't know whether we actually mentioned this, but you ran. So we got to talking about the base in Fortaleza, you setting it up, but then you ran a school. Mm-hmm. You ran a mission school in Fortaleza for how many years?
This was our second one here that we did.
So you ran two, and there's another one starting this year. So you've started. Tell us about what it was like starting a mission school.
Yeah, I mean, we did it with,
because basically this is what you're bringing to Iris now. Is what you've it's a continuation of this school, what God's been doing with you, that you're going to start another school now to be ascending school. And I'm sure that a lot of what the Lord taught you in that is going to come into this secondary school you're doing now. Would that be right to assume that?
Yeah. Yeah, the school was really fun. It was 3.5 months.
3 months.
3 months. And so we focus a lot on, on several things. We teach theology. There's a 10-page paper. We also do small groups to really kind of focus on what's your dream, what do you feel called to, and how are you going to go after that, and really start keeping them accountable to running after it.
Very practical.
It's really focused on going out and sending them out and preparing them. They had opportunity to go with us to the red light ministry that we were already doing, to the slums with the children and the families, communities, and as well the unreached areas that are a few hours outside of the city, where there's really unreached areas that haven't really heard the gospel, that we're starting a base kind of out there as well. And so they were able to do some 10-day outreach out in that area as well during the school.
Awesome.
Did I miss anything?
No. Church history. I mean, we did focus a little bit more. A lot of morning prayer and stuff.
Yeah.
It was a smaller group, like
how many do you have?
up to 50 is right now our limit. Yeah, and so we so it was great to be able to you get a little bit more of time to do more discipleship and
Actually
stuff.
learn all their names.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Actually know all their names. That's pretty cool.
That's nice. And and one thing we do is we ask our staff that are leading the small groups. They've all done missions, and so we try to really be like more. I think there's a lot of schools popping up. The beauty of that in Iris is that people can really focus on where they're gifted and what they're carrying. And I think something that we carry in our hearts is unreached, kind of that hardcore missions.
Yeah.
And the guys there in Brazil now, they're running it. That's what they carry, I think. And so in community, we do a lot with missional community, and so it's pretty intensive. Yeah. But people come out changed, and it's amazing, And we have this school. We found out 90% out of the, I think 40 some. There's only 4 people that are not going into full-time missions. So that's pretty amazing.
That's awesome.
Oh my goodness! So that's
but it's very
exciting.
intensive, kind of one-on-one.
Yeah.
We do have people leave in the first little bit sometimes, and so
which is probably not a bad thing.
No, actually, for us, we don't feel it is, but
for them either, because if they're not really called to it, you don't want to be going out in the mission field if you're not really, prepared and have got that desire and faith to do it.
Yeah.
Right, and the beauty of that is there's a lot of amazing other schools that they can do. If we we won't accept somebody if we don't feel like, if for instance they're going to do another 3 years of something else before, it doesn't make that much sense for them to come get that training and then go, unless God speaks to everybody and says, okay, let's do that. And so the beauty of that is we get to train the people that feel more called to go out right now. Yeah. And so it's been an awesome school. Yeah, but that was 3 months. We've learned like 3 months you can really get in there and get to know people and really challenge people in that environment. It's, and a lot of tears and a lot of healing and a lot of really close relationships. By the end, it's just like family. And but it would be that extra time and knowing where they're going, that really creates a trajectory where we can really focus on specifically where they're going, what they need, team dynamics. Yeah. That's a huge one that we've been helping our teams as they go out.
Right. So actually how a team functions, roles within a team, how you work together, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And the beauty of that is, missionary...
Conflict resolution?
Yes. It's huge.
Absolutely.
A lot of
Definitely.
that in our school.
We're not going to just sweep that under the carpet.
Yeah. And so that's one of the big things about community. And so we really...
No, go.
Oh, so we just really feel passionate about teams working together. I think one thing I saw in the mission field, and this is just across the board, ends up being one of the most difficult environments with that community aspect. And so that's a well-known statistic. In fact, for many years it's not a huge value usually on the mission field, the team. But it ends up
What is it? Peanut butter? No peanut butter?
It's like
number two reason missionaries leave it. Number one is conflict with other missionaries. Is it?
Yes. Yeah. Number one reason for sure.
Peanut butter.
Any organization.
So get them to know conflict. How to do conflict resolution and love other missionaries, and give them heaps of peanut butter.
Boom.
And they'll stay forever, mate.
Yes, that's right.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I think definitely
conflict in an intense situation.
Yeah.
Really. It's so important for everyone, but I guess when you're on the mission field, it's just more intense. So
Yes.
you're like forced to deal with something
Culture
in
shock,
an even more intense environment.
cross-cultural.
Yeah.
So I think those are a couple things that we'll definitely be focusing a lot on in the school here
Yeah.
in LA as well. Just the community, really building healthy community and doing the stuff like we really want to get on the ground. We've already been starting to do some outreach. Looking for me, I'm like always drawn to the sexually broken, to the whole porn industry and all the everything, the trafficking that's happening here. So as well as just all the different areas, there's a lot to do here in LA as far as just like finding the most broken and the darkest places. So we're excited to do that as well here.
Yeah.
You mentioned early on that you have a big heart for girls coming out of the sex trade or girls who are in that, who need to be freed from that. What was that like when you got there and you realized in Fortaleza that's one of the biggest, you said, areas that you didn't know that before, where that happens? Do you just, for other girls who have a heart for this as well, what do you do? Do you just go and find the girls? Do you have advice for other people who think, I want to make a difference in that area?
Yeah.
What was that journey like for you?
I mean, for me, how it started there was I looked for anyone that was willing to go with me because I couldn't go all by myself.
Yeah.
And
Good advice.
so I would drag
That's
him
good
along
advice.
with
Don't
me.
do it alone.
So, that
that's
is good advice.
Yeah.
So you do need a team, and that was one of the biggest ways that I feel like I grew as well, was learning how to train others up and pour into them and enable others to know, like really feel confident. And to know the heart of God for that calling. A lot of people feel like drawn to that kind of ministry or interested in it. And so, the heart of Jesus is like beauty and purity. And so we have to always be seeking to know him more. And like I'm not the most like organized and structured person, so that was never like the forte of my ministry. But like I feel like if you're just seeking Jesus with everything you have and seeking his heart, then everything else will come. You'll start to see transformation. I like we definitely need people to administrate and people that have the heart to start businesses and organize and all those kind of things, and those kind of people started to come alongside me, which is amazing there. But what you really need is just his love all the time and flowing through you. We would pray for 2 hours every time before we would even go out, just to get fully filled up. And so that's what I feel is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So.
And you would just go out to the streets, in the beginning, found out where some of the prostitution was happening, prayed, and then did a few trips, and then eventually found a spot she really started contending for one strip there and the team, where a lot of the prostitution happens. It usually happens after midnight, and they would go in and talk to the girls, pray for them, get relationship, and invite them over to the house, and that was really amazing.
Yeah.
Love banquets.
Yeah, we do love banquets where we make it look like a wedding feast for them and just honor them, and that would always just really draw them into a different atmosphere, right actually in the middle of the streets where they live anyway. But
where somebody doesn't
really
want to just
impactful for
take
them.
from me, someone wants to actually give to me, like what's going on here.
It was very impactful for them. And as well, we were interceding over a specific club for several months, and the doors just opened. I was just feeling like God wanted to do something different in this club, and the doors opened where the club manager actually let us take over numerous times for a whole night and just do a worship explosion. And just like worship there and invite the girls in, and it was some of the most powerful nights of worship that I've ever seen. It was just amazing.
Awesome.
Gosh, that's amazing.
Those are some fun things that have happened so far. And now we're really focusing on the area where there's a lot of transvestites and just really seeing some deep relationships grow there. So
Yeah. Wow.
Did you guys what?
Well, so you've thrown the gauntlet over to me, Crystalyn. I do have a question. I was just going to ask you guys, because we're going to wrap up soon, but I was just going to ask you guys, any tips for following Jesus? Like what keeps you in the secret place? What keeps you fired up? Keeps your zeal in the Lord? Just for each of you, I'd just like to each to answer that. Just 'cause I'm sure a lot of our listeners would love to know what keeps you going in the Lord, or how it works for you with the Lord in your relationship with Him.
Yeah, I think, I mean, time, just like finding a corner really becomes
You're speaking
important.
to my heart now.
You know, and it seems so impossible when you have kids and you have all this, and it really is sometimes. And there is grace, you know, there is grace. But I think if we don't, and I'm speaking this to myself right now as well. If we don't actually take the time out, whether it means getting up early or taking away from, it always means taking away from something else.
Yeah.
Then like we just need time to be in His presence and abide in Him and let Him come and fill us and be drawn deeper in, you know. So I would say
huge.
finding time and just being still in His presence.
Whoa.
I think, that time for me, I mean, is, of course, that's the essential. And I think to keep that time, you really need that conviction, I think. And one of the things that's helped me a lot, and coming to the West, you know, is kind of like not validating your weakness, allowing your weakness, like just knowing where it's at. You know, like I know there's things that I don't do well. I know that, but that doesn't mean it's okay either. I know Jesus loves me in that weakness, but I want to give Him everything I can with this life. So in 10 years from now, I want to be different than I am. So maybe I'm not praying enough. There's grace for that. Yeah. You know, just like Lorelei said, but it's not a burden. It's not a shame thing. It's just, man, I want to pray more. You know, that's the kind of man I want to be. That's cool. That's not Jesus. Oh, you know, I think a lot of people are like, oh, that's shame. That's guilt. I want to pray as much as I want. One day to be praying 6 hours a day. You know, that's my desire. That's not even Jesus says if you're not holy if you can't do that. And some people, I think, when we don't do what we want to do, we kind of want to validate it and say, oh, it's actually that's just the way it is. Yeah, you know what I mean. And I have that tendency in making sure that we're never compromising, you know, the things that God gave us, and saying, oh, God believes we can be everything, you know, that He sets in our hearts to do. And so making sure that we continue to fight for that. Like, God believes in me. You know, He wants me to pray in the mornings. And I'm terrible at that. Praying, like, I'll find time to pray
even though we're
wherever.
not hitting our standard, don't lower the standard just because you're not hitting it. Keep the high standard and go for really what you really want in the Lord.
That's perfect. That's exactly it, man.
You phrased it really well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, have you guys learned about how to balance time for each other, for kids, in an intense environment when you're super busy? Do you go on amazing dates in Fortaleza?
We do.
Yeah.
Is it like...
And I want to know how you did that with... How many people were living in your house with you?
Oh, yeah.
I think we had about 30, 40 now.
Can you believe that,
there's
Christy?
about 40
No,
now.
I honestly can't.
I mean, it's a big house. It's got like 10 rooms, 12 rooms, and the
But it
top
was full.
area. Yeah, where we do our services. And it was awesome. I mean, people were like, oh my gosh. You know, some of the other missionaries were like, you guys are saints, you know. But actually, some of that is when you have a team around you that loves you, and you spend each season well. Like we really said, you know, our family is definitely needs, if something in your family isn't clicking right, I think it just shows that you need to go back and you need to take time and invest. But as you give attention to your kids and they feel loved and we feel each other loved, you know, then you can flow more.
Yeah.
But as you know, some people we in the beginning we didn't realize, like, maybe we didn't have that basis, that foundation as strong as we liked of making sure each other felt loved. You know, each of us felt loved, and so we need to take time and really do that season well. You know, like, okay, this, you know, let's go on more dates, or let's do this, and people bless us to go on dates. Somebody started sending money just for that, and you know,
that's beautiful.
Yeah, so we could do a getaway,
and that was huge.
And so I think a lot of people want to jump the steps and like, okay, I want to get to 40 people in the house. You know, for us it did happen quick, I guess, like 3 years, but each season was so each phase of that was really intentional. And so by the time we had 40, we weren't running that base at that point. It was an amazing team that we had been with for those 3 years. Right. Some of them we knew from before, and they all loved our kids. So actually, like, they would babysit our kids. By that time, we were doing so much. We had probably from 7 a.m. to midnight kind of packed, you know, allotted sometimes, depending on the night, because a lot of night activities, you know. And so, but part of that is we would allot our time for prayer. You know, so we would take three days a week, 3 hours in the morning to be able to pray, and that obviously that didn't always just end up being prayer. I wish it did, you know, but knowing that, I could plan that. Like, hey, maybe one of those 3 days is going to end up being like getting the car fixed, doing an emergency that's not on schedule, but really taking time to and saying, God, give me grace. If I don't sleep it that much, It's not the end of the world. God, give me supernatural grace.
Come on.
To do this.
I like that.
You know,
I'm taking that one home.
Yeah, and waking up at the right time.
Yeah.
You know, missionaries out there, like, this is good tips. Wake up at the right, like, get an event. Like, 7 a.m. was prayer every morning at the house.
Yeah, right.
For an hour for the whole team.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. That helps structure your day so that you're not falling behind all the time.
Yeah.
You know, but our team is amazing. They're a family, and they really are the ones that started running the base. We just spent good time with them.
Sweet.
Helped them, and then by the time that was all happening, they were running the base, and we were just teaching and helping the leaders do it, and then trying to focus on what God was giving us.
Yeah, and I think, like you're asking with the schedule, like, I think we really banged around a lot until we're always learning more, but we had people that started giving us life coaching tips and things like that actually were really amazing tools, knowing our priorities. And then we started, we actually should, like, write out a schedule and attempt to do that,
it.
you know. And
See what's most
we're not
important to you.
organized,
look at each other's schedules, and neither
It's
of
not
us
bad
are
advice.
organized in that way.
Yeah.
But that started making a really big difference as well, because then we at least both knew each other's expectations for the week and those kind of things. So we're finding tools, and then the season changes and you have to restart and know, and relearn everything again. But,
Yeah.
Now we've got some really important questions for you guys.
Wow. I'm ready.
Are you ready? Da 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 da. Crystalyn.
Oh, okay.
Is that a question? Crystalyn, that's a question. Crystalyn, what does that mean?
Crystalyn.
Who's going to go first? You or me, Crystalyn?
Well, I was debating, what do you do for fun?
Ooh.
Good question. He watches anime, and sometimes I watch with him.
One Piece.
We also really like
One Piece,
playing
good show.
Biggest thing in Japan.
Come on.
Settlers of Catan.
Settlers of Catan.
Nice.
Fun game.
And these are things, whether you're on the mission
we play
to go or LA,
Wii, yeah.
you can do them anywhere.
Play the Wii all the time.
What's your favourite movie?
That is a hard
That's a
one.
really hard question.
Come on. See, I told you.
Braveheart. I know it's a bit of a cop out.
Yes, man.
But I love the Marvel movies right now.
Me, Braveheart's my favourite too.
I know.
Oh, that's
Get
good.
him going.
Wild at
I
heart.
like Leap Year. It's really cute.
Oh, Leap
Chick
Year.
flick.
Leap Year.
Sweet.
It's a
Yes.
romantic
Cute.
comedy.
Clean.
That's so classic, guys.
I
Braveheart.
know. I know. I feel so.
That's lovely.
And we
Yeah.
go on dates. We really like the mall because the mall in Fortaleza was where there was AC,
AC.
and a nice coffee
Oh,
shop.
so
we
you lived
still
all those
kind of
years with no
gravitate
AC?
towards the mall.
Yeah, no
Fortaleza.
AC.
Is that one of the
Hey,
big
I'm
things
signing.
you
I'm putting a
miss?
second signature on that missionary validation certificate. Just so you guys.
It's hot. It's hot.
5 years.
Is that
in
one
the
of the
tropics,
things-
no
Sorry.
AC, Crystal. I'm just like having a moment here.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
He
We have to
does that.
acknowledge.
He
We have
has
to acknowledge the
those.
suffering
A lot.
for the Lord in the gospel here, right here, with no AC. For
No
5 years
AC.
in Fortaleza.
Yeah,
But there
just like
was
the other-
running
The
water
Barbutis.
almost
Running
all
water.
the time.
Just not
which
hot
is
water.
Great.
Right. It had run.
Luxury.
Goodness me.
Is that what are some of the big things you miss about the States when you're there? AC?
Hot
Carpet.
water. Carpet.
Hot
I like carpet. I don't know.
Huh.
It's so nice.
I missed blueberries. I was
Oh,
pregnant a
blueberries.
lot of the time when I was there, so,
So
it
you're
ended
having
up being
cravings.
foods.
Oh,
Berries.
You didn't have as many choices.
Yeah. That's mostly what. And I mean, yeah, AC.
Nice.
Sometimes.
Crystal, we're on the last questions, the last 5 questions. You're asking all the other questions.
Oh, I'm going on tangents. You're getting mad at me for going on
We're supposed
tangents?
to be on the last 5, you know, the special ones.
Well, it was kind of, yeah.
Oh, that was a great
Do you
question.
have a favorite sound?
A favorite sound.
Wow. I've never thought about that.
That is
Come
a really
on,
unique
good question, hey?
Favorite
See,
sound.
Christy? It's a fantastic
I
question.
could help you out. Parents normally.
That's cheating. No, don't say
Oh, you mean
Sorry.
like the child's voice? Is that
I
the
don't know.
sound?
I don't know.
Oh,
yeah.
Does that count? Count me in.
Yeah.
My wife's voice.
Oh.
And then my
Oh.
kid's voice.
He's been on date nights. You
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah, I mean, those things, yes. I love the sound of your voice and the boy's voice. I also like really good piano music.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things ever.
Cello.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, angel singing. I haven't heard it yet, 100%, but
You can
That's going to be
imagine.
your favourite.
that's going to be my
A sound
favorite.
you've never
The
heard
sound,
before.
come on.
That's- yeah.
Now, what would you guys do if you weren't, for some reason, missionaries didn't exist anymore and you had to get a day job or your favourite thing? What would be a different occupation you would do?
Go
Such
for
a
it.
hard question. You first. I don't know.
Like, what would float your boat?
Well, I don't know. Probably on a ranch riding horses. I love
Come on,
horses.
running a ranch, gosh.
And singing somewhere in there. I like to
Come
sing.
on. I can see you like a country and western star. Lorelei
Country singer on a
Barbutti.
ranch.
Wow.
With the guitar, doing concerts at
Maybe
night,
that
riding
could
horses
happen.
by
That's what I grew
day.
up wanting to do, so.
I can see you with the cowgirl hat on.
Yeah.
And the boots. I'm seeing it all. I'm having a vision. I'm in an open vision. Oh my gosh.
Could definitely happen.
Could definitely.
What about you,
Could
Mr.
have
Barbutti?
happened.
I don't know if I could see myself doing anything else, but maybe like before I really got baptized in the Holy Spirit, I wanted to make video games.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Animate.
I made
Yeah.
one in middle school with my friends. Yeah,
Yay.
It's
Could be
online,
like
you
this
can play
game
it.
developer. It's online.
it's like
online.
Barbutti.
it's old school, man. It's like Super
old-
Nintendo
It's pretty
time.
fun.
Yeah,
I
that's
played
cool.
Yeah.
Come on, didn't you see that
that's
movie? What was that
awesome.
movie that came out and had all the old video games on it with Adam Sandler?
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah, there's an Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah, I
And
know
they've
what
got
you're
Oh,
go
I've
back.
heard about it. but I
Oh,
haven't
you've got to
seen
see it.
Is it funny?
Yeah, it's funny because it's got all the old video games on there. It's Pac-Man.
Pac-Man.
Oh, I
Have you
saw the
seen
trailer. I saw the trailer.
Oh, you've got to see
Yeah.
Pac-Man. It's so funny. It's
That's
all that
really
old
funny.
Maya generation, the first video games that
Oh,
came out.
he's like alive.
Because
the
there's real
Pac-Man.
real aliens from outer space, but they're coming with and they're fighting through the old game systems.
Nathan, you're too excited.
and
This is like, ah!
it's
We gotta get
super
you over for
great.
game night.
Yes, come on, we got to do
Yeah,
this.
Chad's been over. We played Mario Kart.
Hey, now what? How many questions? Is there 2 more questions?
I no.
There's one more.
One more.
This is the last one. Do you want to ask it, Christy, or should I? You're throwing it to me again, Crystalyn. You're so good. Okay, here's the last question of this podcast. Get ready, listeners.
All right.
Life's over. It's all wrapped up. You're standing at the gates of heaven. Jesus comes out. What do you want to hear Jesus say to you when you first get to heaven?
That's also hard.
What's he going to say to Lorelei Barbutti? What's he going to say to Herbert Barbutti?
Barbutti.
Yeah, I mean, hearing him say "well done" would be pretty incredible.
Come on.
Would
That's what
be
Roland
amazing.
said.
Yeah, I think definitely well done, and I guess to have him call me friend, I think that would be amazing to know I was a friend of God. So
Oh, come on. Well, guys, thank you so much
Thank you.
Thanks for being
guys.
here.
for sharing your hearts
thank you guys for having us.
and for suffering on the mission field with joy. And it's amazing. Your stories are incredible and your lives are incredible. And we can't wait for this school and to see what God's going to do and get these unreached people groups reached with the gospel of Jesus
on.
Christ. Yes. So, Crystalyn, take us out.
Thank you to all who are listening. If you have any comments or questions you'd like to hear us ask future guests, you can leave them on our comment section. And until next time.
See you later. This podcast is presented by Iris Global. For more information or to support the work of Iris Global, please visit us online at irisglobal.org.